Thanks for coming back. We're really excited for this week's episode. We're going to continue our OG Star Wars trilogy discussion on The Empire Strikes Back. We really appreciate all the feedback we received throughout the last week on A New Hope discussion. And keep it coming. We really enjoy engaging with everyone watching. We appreciate you watching and hope to continue to bring some entertaining content for you guys. Be sure to like and subscribe. And what do you say, Justin? You ready to kick it off?
So yeah, we're gonna pick up right where we left off last week. We're gonna dive into Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, released in 1980. Before we dive into anything, John, how you feeling about the film? Do you like it? How
I'm
do you
not gonna
compare it
lie.
to A New Hope? Where are you at on this one, man?
Yeah, not gonna lie. I like we talked about last week. I wasn't really thrilled about discussing Star Wars at all because
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like it has really aged well for me as a fan, from being a kid watching it and collecting the action figures, playing the video games, Super NES we talked about a little bit. I went down a nostalgia trip myself throughout the week and then, after posting uh the episode about it and watching it, I was like, wow, I actually enjoyed that, I think, more than I thought. Going back and rewatching The Empire Strikes Back, I went into it with more of an open mind, I guess, not to appease, some of the watchers or viewers of the video who may have, made sure to correct us about, hey, remember, when this movie was made and give it some grace. I think that's a really good point and fair to consider. And they're totally right. I mean, it had me thinking, who wouldn't have loved, from we're millennials, like
hmm
from our generation onward to Gen Z, like who wouldn't want to go back in time and watch some of these movies in the theaters, when they were first made? That is a great point.
Sure.
Probably something we should have mentioned, last week. That being said, I think it's important to remember that we are just critiquing the film from our lens, our point of view. So
Yes.
we don't want to offend people, and have, the Star Wars nerd gang out after us. But I
Yep.
really went into it this week with a better open mind. And after watching The Empire Strikes Back, I definitely have some, comments to make. But I will say right off the get-go, I do believe it's much far more superior than A New Hope. And I like The New Hope, but I think, we've got a lot to discuss here when it comes to The Empire Strikes Back. How about you?
For sure. Yeah, I enjoy the movie, but to piggyback on what you're talking about, we love movies. We love shows. It's very rare though to come across the perfect movie, the
Sure.
perfect show.
Yeah.
For example, I love Halloween, but I could pick that franchise apart. You know what I mean?
And we'll get there.
Um, and we'll get there. And that's the thing about some of the comments we saw over the past week. We want you guys to know we really appreciate it. Please keep commenting below. We love having these discussions with you guys. We really do. So please don't stop commenting. But we don't want you to think we are saying these movies suck, these movies are trash. We
Right.
don't want you to think we're shitting all over them because we're not. We're just critiquing them. We're doing a deep dive.
Having
And
some
just
laughs.
yeah, just because, you love something doesn't mean you can't say, they could have done that better or this and that, or just discuss how a specific character is. And you may be the biggest Star Wars fan ever, but you cannot deny that Luke Skywalker is a whiny bitch
Yeah,
in A New Hope. You
exactly.
just can't do it. You just can't do it. So, once again, we want you to know, keep commenting. We love speaking with you guys on this, but we're not shitting on the movies.
We're not shitting on the movie.
We're just having some
Yeah,
fun here. Okay, so.
exactly. So grow up, Peter Pan, Count
Count
Chocula.
Chocula, look.
Just have some laughs and look at it from a wider lens.
Because, like I said, guys, you can see behind me, I am the biggest horror nerd you'll ever meet. But every movie back there, I could pick apart inside and out. I could poke fun at, and that's all we're doing. So it's all in fun. But yeah, I do enjoy Empire Strikes Back. One thing you notice right off the bat is the budget. Okay, like George Lucas went into A New Hope, and like you said last week, everybody's probably like, "What the hell kind of movie is this?" But it
Right.
obviously blew up. It's a box office success. Fans worldwide right off the bat. So you can tell coming into Empire Strikes Back, they're working with a lot more here,
Oh yeah.
which is really interesting to see. And if we're just gonna jump right into the movie, it starts, on the planet of Hoth, if I'm not mistaken, which is where the rebels are based out of. This is after they successfully blow up the Death Star to cap A New Hope.
Right.
And, Luke Skywalker successfully did that. And now that he blew up the Death Star, he has profile, and the Empire knows who Skywalker is, which is actually a point we're going to dive into later on. I have a few notes here I wanted to dive into, but
Yeah.
they are on the planet of Hoth at the Rebel base, and we are met with Luke Skywalker and Han out in a blizzard, if you will. And Luke insists on checking out a meteor that falls when essentially he gets jumped by this Yeti-like creature. It's a creepy scene, scarred me as a kid, but ages well, great practical effects, and not what you're expecting for this sequel. Kind of a jump scare in your face, this big, gnarly monster. What do you think of the opening here?
I hated it. I I thought it was overall, I like this movie so much better, but I mean, if are we kidding? Like we're starting off the sequel with a totally unnecessary, perilous subplot to Luke Skywalker. We know he's not going to die. Why are we having him attacked by the abominable snowman? Like it's just completely silly in my opinion. Sure, like the budget and the effects you can tell have we've taken a step up. But yeah, right off the get-go, I'm not a fan of the opening scene. Totally unnecessary, in my opinion, and a waste of 15 minutes of the movie.
So, I don't know if you're aware, but after A New Hope, Mark Hamill was in an accident and he effed up his face pretty good. So apparently, from what I've
Hmm.
heard, is this scene was not initially, part of the script, part of the movie, but when he came into production and he had these gnarly scars across his face, they needed to explain that somehow, which is
Interesting.
which is why they created this scene kind of like on a quick pace, threw it in there because you're right, it's so random.
I
I did
rescind
want
my complaint. I like
to
it.
right. And I did want to bring that up, actually. I have it here to talk about. I actually really liked how the filmmakers did that. You have
Yeah,
Luke Skywalker, the face of your franchise, showing up to film
no
the
pun
sequel.
intended.
Yeah, showing up to film the sequel with scars all over his face. So they're like, okay, well, we have to explain this somehow. Let's just throw in this gnarly scene to start. And, as soon as then, he's, rescues himself, and when the film carries on, you
Oh, that's
notice he has
crazy.
the scars across his
Yeah.
face. So,
That's crazy. I did not know that. And if that's true, I feel like I need to look that up. But yeah, good creative choice. I guess it checks out. It makes sense. Much needed scene to explain how he got the scars.
could you imagine though if I was just way off and that didn't, and I like saw that on like TikTok or something, and I'm over here creating
Well, we
this
better look
narrative.
it up to make sure.
I'm pretty sure I saw that in a documentary, but we'll definitely fact check it. But I do believe that that is a true story.
Yes, he did have visible, lasting injuries from a severe car accident in 1977, just before filming started for Empire Strikes Back. It required plastic surgery to rebuild his nose and cheek. Crazy. So, yeah, good call on that.
Oh,
I did not know that at all. So that explains the abominable snowman, the need for that. And it makes sense. So, fuck what I said. Great opening scene. I love it.
in that opening scene, I don't know what the hell they're riding, these horse slash raptors, if you will. One thing that always stuck me as a kid and, rewatching still hits me to this day is, Han Solo rescues Luke out there in the blizzard, and to keep him warm, they cut open this raptor slash horse. And it shows like these guts. And it made me laugh because I remember last week you told me there's certain characters or certain scenes that you still to this day cannot watch while eating. And that is me with this scene. He cuts it open, you see these like white guts come out, and you hear like kind of like the wet spaghetti noodle sound,
Yeah.
and Han Solo's like mentioning how gnarly it smells. And I was like, I remember seeing this as a kid. If I'm not mistaken, I think I was eating like a spaghetti or some type thing. And it scarred me still to this day where, yeah, I can't eat watching that scene at
Yeah.
all.
Before we get to Han rescuing him, though, we are introduced to Han and Leia back at the Star Station, and right off the get-go, Han and Leia share a long gaze where you just
Hmm.
know, okay, well, they're obviously in love now. And it's really like right from the get-go, Han's like, well, I guess I'm gonna get going. And everyone's like, all the generals are like, Captain Solo, you've been such a tremendous help. Damn shame we can't keep you around because you're a heck of a fighter. I don't understand why they can't just pay off his debt for him. Like if he's such a good fighter for the rebellion, the rebel force, like why not just keep him and pay off the debt for him to Jabba the Hutt? Like they have this secret base that probably cost billions of dollars to make in the snow mountain, but like you can't pay off Han. He helped destroy the freaking Death Star for God's sake, you know? Like
Mhm.
why are we just like, ah, we wish we could keep Han Solo around, but he has a debt to pay with Jabba the Hutt that we're not going to help him with. So see ya.
Exactly.
I don't understand that. Seems like a plot hole.
And how the hell is he a captain? I mean, he's like a
Yeah.
and he's a professional smuggler. He's a criminal, and he just joins the rebel base, and all of a sudden they promote him to captain. Very confused by his ranking, if you will, and don't really know if he deserves it, to say the least, because I don't even think Luke Skywalker's a captain, and he's the one that blew up the damn Death Star. So
Right.
not sure who's
Exactly.
really coming up with the rankings here, but you're right. Definitely some questions raised, right off the bat, at the Rebel base.
Totally.
And before we do move on, when Han goes out to rescue Luke, before he does, Luke sees the Force ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi, who tells
Yeah.
him to go see Yoda. And we'll get to that shortly, but that obviously has a major impact on where the film goes, where the series goes.
Yeah.
But regardless, yeah, Han Solo captures Luke and brings him back to the base, and they set for a massive battle, which as a kid, I always loved this battle. I thought it was so cool. Well, definitely played our Star Wars figures reenacting this one. And I would put it up there with D-Day from Saving Private Ryan. It's a good one, man.
It's
It's a
make it
good
your
battle.
war list.
Yeah,
It
it's
is a good
making my.
battle. But can I
Yep.
say something before we get to the Battle of Hoth? So they're in the station. This is asked after Han rescues Luke, okay? And just to go back to the nerdiness of Luke, he's in recovery and he's laying in the bed and Han and Leia are talking and he looks at Leia and Han just goes, "I just think you can't let a gorgeous guy like me leave." Luke in the background is so annoyed by that comment. He just rolls his eyes and is like, and it just perfectly. We still have a New Hope Luke at this point in the movie. I don't understand. Like they're looking at the radar system, all the generals and higher ups that Leia is in the room with, and they're like, "We just detected a metal object that entered into hyperspace or whatever." And Han's like, "We'll go check it out." And him and Chewie go out and see what this is about, and they destroy it for no reason. And it automatically sends a signal to the fucking Star Destroyers and Vader is like, "What did we find?" And his admirals are like, "Yeah, it looks like one of our droids ran into something and got destroyed. It's probably nothing." And Vader's like, "No, that's where the rebels are. We're sending an attack now." It's like if Han and Chewie didn't fucking destroy that thing, they would have never been, discovered, essentially. Like Han even says after he destroys it, he's like, "It looks like the Empire knows we're here. We better get out of here." And it's like, "No, actually, you're completely wrong." They almost were like, probably just a weather issue or something. Totally unnecessary for them to just start acting like cowboys and destroy that reconnaissance droid that the Empire sent down.
That is a great point. I didn't even add that to my notes. That totally went over my head.
It was, yeah, I
Well,
was like, wait a second.
just shows how inexperienced Han and Chewie are, and the fact that the Rebel just throw them into these positions of power just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Totally.
And Han Solo's whole mindset at this point is still getting with Leia. And it really is, and you brought up Luke's, being in the New Hope stage still at this point, if you will. Man, when Han rescues Luke and brings him back, and Chewie's there and Leia comes in, Han is full of himself. Han's saying, "Oh, you should have seen us earlier today in the passageway." She making it seem like him and Leia have something going on. Just cuts to Luke Skywalker, and once again he has that like
Yeah, he's so
like
pissed.
jealous,
Right.
like look about him. And to get back at Han, Leia goes up and kisses Luke. And then he gets all cocky.
Yeah.
I never understood what's up with the facial expression, the lean back.
Yeah, he just
So random,
yep.
just so
Yep.
cocky and arrogant. And, you know, the fact that these two are kind of in a back and forth over Leia as, you know, the fate of the universe is, you know, at stake here.
Hanging in the balance.
Just really shows, you know, where their minds
Right.
are. But, you know, it leads us into the battle. And another thing I want to talk about is Luke's co-pilot, Dak. Such a fucking nerd. I'm doing great. Right now, I feel like I could take on the Empire by myself. He fucking dies within the first 3 minutes of battle.
I feel like I could take on the whole Empire myself.
Really? Cause that would be awesome. Hey everyone! Dad says he's got this one!
You know it, bitches!
You know, and Luke's like, I know what you mean, Dak. Like seriously, like Dak talking all that shit, and he literally gets whacked within the first, you know, 4 minutes of battle.
Right.
And you know, just the way Luke finds out Dak is dead always makes me laugh. It reminds me of two things. First off, it reminds me of Red from Pineapple Express when they're praying at the end in the cafe, and Red just kind of head just goes down. You know what I mean?
They're
Like,
like
'cause
red, red.
you don't hear anything. You just kind of like this. And then also, you're gonna love this one, Jimmy from Halloween 2, when he gets, we gotta get out of here. Just doesn't even say anything. So
Back to Pineapple Express. I'm
yeah,
just, they wake him up and he's like, I'm just trying to figure out if I'm seeing shit because of how stoned I am or because of all the blood I've lost in the
he's
last
been shot like 8 times.
8 times. I'm like
So.
the nerd at the sleepover who fell asleep at 9.
And as this battle progresses, you know, just some of those classic corny Star Wars quotes. Those shields are too strong for blasters.
Yeah, they're too strong for blasters, and then they trip one with a freaking metal harpoon cable, and
Yeah.
then they shoot it and it blows up.
Hmm.
So it's like, well, the blasters apparently work after you trip them and they
Yeah,
fall over.
exactly.
Before that, though, even there's another random pilot. Leia is giving a speech to all the pilots. This one random pilot, horrible actor,
Yeah.
just spits out two
Yeah.
fighters versus Star Destroyer.
Oh my God, that's so good. But you gotta admit though, you gotta admit a lot going on off the bat, and you
Yeah.
can definitely tell they're trying their best to, you know, keep you reeled in.
So much
And,
action right off the get-go.
yeah,
So we're
compared to a New
already
Hope.
we're already score higher score for Empire Strikes Back. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And another point I want to bring up is as they escape Hoth, you know, obviously, you know, they put up a fight, but they do lose the battle to the
No,
Empire,
they get
and
creamed.
they,
They get
they really do
destroyed. It's not even close.
get their
I love
asses
how
whooped.
Luke's ship gets shot down and he's like he gets out of it and like harpoons his way up to the underbelly of the Imperial Walker
Yeah.
and lightsabers a hole in it and throws a grenade. And he just releases the clip that's holding him up to the bottom of the walker. He falls like 50 feet. And he has the most soft cushioned landing in the snow ever. It's a fucking 50-foot drop. And he just falls
Absolutely.
like it's nothing.
Absolutely. Good catch. And as they escape Hoth, another point I want to bring up is the disrespect of the droids continues. You know,
Oh, totally.
Han's, you know, piloting the Millennium Falcon, and they are really heading into an asteroid field.
Before we get there, they don't
Yeah,
even take off of Hoth yet. And they're like, Han's like, Leia, we gotta go. And you hear over the loudspeaker, Imperial troops within the bay.
right.
Imperial troops within the bay. Han's like, Leia, like, we're gotta fucking go. Why didn't they have the Millennium Falcon warmed up? Like they sprint they sprint into the holding bay where the Millennium Falcon is parked, and it won't even fucking start. Vader's walking down with the long cloaked stormtroopers, like right there. And it's like, God, now's the worst time for the Millennium Falcon not to be starting. It's like, why didn't you like why wasn't Chewie doing this for the past 10 minutes? We got to let the engines warm up to get out of here. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that
What
just
the hell's Chewie even been doing?
right,
Seriously.
right.
But it ticks me off, how rude they are to these droids because these droids have and continue to bail them out of some of the gnarliest situations. They save their lives damn near every movie, if
Every
not every
time.
movie.
Yeah. Yep.
And, you have Han Solo, or should I say Captain Han
Captain
Solo,
Solo.
driving them straight into a fucking asteroid field, and you have C-3PO trying to say where he's leading us and express how dangerous this is. And what does Han do? Shut up or shut him down. And I'm like, you know what?
You know what? The
We need
disrespect.
to we need to have some justice here for 3PO and R2D2
Especially when
because
Han is like, he's flying the ship right after he says that to R2D2, and he's like, "Oh yeah, watch this," and he presses a
yeah.
button and nothing happens, and Leia's like, "Watch what?" Then he's just like blank stare. He's like, "Well, that didn't work."
He's just talking all this shit like, watch this.
So
And
yeah.
nothing
Meanwhile, they're
happens.
flying through that asteroid field,
Yeah.
and Luke is with. At this point, Luke
D2.
Luke has
Yep.
R2D2, and they're
Yep.
in the planet where Yoda is, and he's like. R2D2 is like, I don't think this planet's a great idea. Like, is it safe for droids? And he's like, it's totally safe for droids. Don't worry about it. And then he's like, wow, we're coming in fast. And he's like, I'm going to prepare for the landing cycle. And he crashes immediately right into the lake. It's like, great landing, Luke. They get off the ship 2 seconds later, and a fucking squid tentacle arm grabs R2D2 immediately and almost
Yeah.
drowns him. It's like, yeah, great call, Luke, on the fucking. This is totally safe for droids.
It'll totally float. You're fucked. Yeah, well, we'll jump right there. We'll jump right to Luke Skywalker out there with R2D2 trying to find Yoda as Ben Kenobi instructed him to. And you know what? This is really where the bitching continues. The whining, bitching continues from Luke Skywalker. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, totally. And real quick,
Oh,
something
yeah.
that reminds me of another great show is when R2D2 gets pulled underwater by that monster. Before he gets spit back out, Luke's just like, R2, R2. He pulls out his little blaster pistol like Dangle. He's just like running around pointing. I saw it today and I was like, all I see is Lieutenant Dangle from fucking Reno 911.
Reno
Aim
Miami. Reno 911 Miami.
Miami.
Don't start a count. Okay, one. Sorry, my bad. What the fuck? One, two.
Good, I'm out.
I thought I was out. Yeah, great point. We should dive into that one
Oh
time.
yeah, that's a great movie. Reno 911 Miami, Lieutenant Jim Dangle.
Oh, absolutely. But we're here on the planet where Yoda's residing, and Yoda finds Luke. Luke has no idea that this could potentially be Yoda. He just thinks it's just some little creature, little critter just effing with him. You have Yoda now who's just kind of going through the bags, and Luke has no idea who it is, so he's obviously being very rude. And the whininess just comes out. Hey, dinner. It, and he doesn't have any time for Yoda. I mean, Yoda's just trying to like make him a cup of tea, show him around, and he's like, "What am I doing here? I'm wasting my time." And it's just funny because when Yoda reveals himself to be who he is, and then he kind of summons the Force ghost of Ben Kenobi. They're having this back and forth. You can't see Kenobi, but you can hear him, and Luke's kind of watching the whole thing take place, and he just tries to join in on the conversation. He starts yelling at a Force ghost. I can be a Jedi. Ben, tell him I'm ready. Tell him I'm ready. And kind of stands up and nails his head on Yoda's roof, and it's like, just be patient. You're so angry to the point where you're like yelling at a Force ghost and like bumping
Ben is
your
like,
head.
this is why you're not ready, Luke, you son
Yeah,
of a bitch.
I know. It's so funny because it's a cool back and forth, Yoda talking about specific, thinking patterns, and emotions and how, it could lead to the dark side and, how he sees a lot of his father in him. I actually really do enjoy the scene, but it's just so hard for me to look past just Luke Skywalker here. And
Totally get it.
you know, you hear Kenobi go, you know, after Yoda says, you know, he's reckless, he's angry, you know, you hear Kenobi go, so was I, if you remember. And it just cuts to Luke and he kind of looks at Yoda like, see, motherfucker, like I can be a Jedi. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's so bratty, you know.
Yeah.
And one thing that, you know, really always catches me is, you know, Yoda makes it a bring up, will he finish what he starts? You know, if he's going to start this, if I'm going to commit to this training, is he going to finish? And Luke insists, like, yeah, man, like, I'm here. I'm ready. I want to be a Jedi. And literally, as soon as his ship is not in the water, he fucking hauls ass out of there against Yoda's teachings, you know.
Yep,
So once
for
again,
sure.
just kind of shows, you know, his lack of patience, where he's at, and just, you know,
Overconfidence.
yeah, he's really
Yep.
not committed, you know,
Great
to it
point.
100%.
Right. Not at that point anyway. And then we
No.
jump to, we see Vader. We see this random admiral back on a Star Cruiser or Star Destroyer machine or whatever up in
Hmm.
space, and they're walking into Vader's lair. He stands there like at attention with his hands behind his back, and it shows Vader's chair turning, like doing a 360 rotation, and his helmet coming down, and you see Vader's bald, exposed, charred up head for the first
Yeah.
time. And as a viewer, it's quite shocking. It's a great shot, of Vader unmasked, but it looks back at the Admiral who's like waiting to talk to him, and he's like, "What the fuck?" It's almost like he's like, "Ew, what is wrong with your head?" And then Vader's chair spins around and he's like, yes, Lord Vader.
Yeah.
I just was losing it. I was laughing so hard. I was like, can you imagine what he was probably actually thinking?
He like leaves the room and goes to all his coworkers and he's like, Jesus Christ, you should get a load of this fucking guy.
Did you know Vader's head?
Did you know he's bald?
You should see what Vader's head looks like. It becomes an instant urban legend amongst all the Star Cruisers. They're like, hey,
Great point.
did you hear Admiral Johnson saw Vader's head? Nah, I don't believe it.
Yeah. Great point. That's hysterical. Well, yeah, you know, while we're on the topic of Vader, you know, we're not just introduced to Yoda, we're introduced to Palpatine, you know,
Yeah.
the Emperor, you know. And I brought this up, you know, when we first started talking about it, caught my attention because early in the film, when they find out where the base is, after you pointed out Chewie and Han Solo blew up the droid, and that's the whole reason why the cover's blown, Vader makes it a point to say that's the base, quote unquote, Skywalker is there, right? So, like, Luke Skywalker now has profile from the Empire. They know who he is. They may not know, you know, he's training with Yoda or anything, but they know he's got ties to the Force. He's a dangerous dude, right? And I never understood this scene when Palpatine reveals Luke Skywalker is the son of Anakin Skywalker. Now, it's not revealed yet that Vader is Anakin Skywalker. It's not revealed yet, but Vader's response to this is, how can that be true? You know, like it's impossible. And I never understood that because it's like, first of all, how many fucking Skywalkers are out there? You know, like seriously, like Anakin Skywalker, if you remember from the prequel trilogy, like he didn't have a father. He was born, you know, just from, you know,
Yeah.
that woman. And he's the only Skywalker out there, you know. So first off, I just found it very
I th-
random
I
and, you know,
think
poor writing where they're like, you know, he knows of a Skywalker, but wouldn't put two and two together. Like, oh,
sure.
could this potentially be my son? Like, how many
Sure.
Skywalkers are out there? You know what I mean?
I mean, considering this movie was made, what, 20, 25 years before, Revenge of the Sith, when the
Hmm.
conclusion of Darth Vader is a wrap, it's probably, I would imagine, he thought, we're jumping timelines here, but Anakin, before he becomes Vader, I thought they told him that Padme had died.
And she
So,
lost the
so
kids.
therefore she lost the children. And Vader, when he becomes Vader, isn't that when they tell him actually, when Vader becomes Vader and he steps off the table with the full suit on for the first time, they're
Hmm.
like, you killed Padme. Like, Padme is dead.
Yes.
Therefore, his children, his unborn children, would be killed as well. Like, I thought so maybe in Empire Strikes Back, that's when he's like, how can that be? That's impossible for a Skywalker to be alive. So maybe that's why? I don't know. Like, and I think Emperor Palpatine is saying he's the son of Anakin Skywalker, almost talking in the past tense. Like,
Hmm.
yes, Vader, we know you're Anakin, but you actually were Anakin. You killed him when you converted to the dark side. You're
Yeah.
now Vader. You're no longer Anakin.
So
Kind of
I
how I take it, I guess.
So I totally get what you're saying, and it's a great point, but it doesn't because once again, like how many Skywalkers are really out there in the early, part of the film when he finds the base, he's like, no, that's where Skywalker is. So not saying he knows then, because he obviously doesn't, judging, off this conversation we're having now. But it's just weird that like this big, omniscient, Lord, if you will, wouldn't put that together when he literally knows Luke's name. He's
Sure.
like Skywalker, and it's like, why? He shares my last name. Is there a chance it could be my son or like a cousin or something, especially since he knows he has ties to the Force? I just thought that was interesting. You know what I mean?
I get that for sure. I think also it's a possibility that he knows it and he's playing it off to the Emperor like he doesn't.
Hmm.
Because by the time
Good point.
the ending of Empire Strikes Back rolls around, he cuts off Luke's hand, or maybe before he cuts off Luke's hand, he's like, "Join me, Luke. We can rule the galaxy as father and son and overthrow the Emperor." Which
Hmm.
I also rewatching it now for the first time in 20 years. I never realized that Vader's actual plan was to enlist Luke Skywalker, his known son, who he admits is his son, to Luke, and admits to him, if you join forces, we could be so powerful we could overthrow the Emperor and rule the galaxy as a father and son. So
Yeah,
maybe he's playing it off to the Emperor, like, how could that be? Like he's
sure.
playing
Yeah.
two sides to it. Like he's playing the Emperor potentially for his own agenda in private. His own
Hmm.
agenda being, I want Luke on my side as my son, long lost son, who has the Force abilities and capabilities to rule with me if I can only convert him to the dark side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense, actually. Well said. So that, brings us back to Yoda and Luke. The training continues, and so does the arrogance and disobedience of Luke Skywalker.
Seriously.
It shows the scene where they are, running through the woods and he's doing all these somersaults and backflips and all that. And they come up to this spooky forest. And, Luke insists on going in. Yoda doesn't really tell him not to, but, he preaches about it a little bit. The only feedback he gives Luke is you don't need to take a weapon in with you. You don't
Right.
need one. Of course, Luke doesn't give a fuck. He goes in with his blaster. So just once again, just not listening to his Jedi master. And I will say this scene I always thought was cool. A lot of cool foreshadowing and storytelling, in a scene that, really has no words. Obviously he goes into the forest, Vader comes out and he has a little short duel with him, lightsaber duel, cuts his head off. The mask explodes and it reveals Luke. And I just thought that was some cool foreshadowing for two things. It's really foreshadowing, your father is Vader, which we haven't gotten there yet. Up until this point, it's only Anakin Skywalker. We don't know Vader is Anakin Skywalker. But also, too, it really shows where Luke is going to end up if he doesn't control himself, if he doesn't try to work on controlling his mind, and
His
working on his
anger and
patience and
his,
his
right.
anger and,
Yep.
all that stuff. So I think there was some really cool foreshadowing in that scene. And I think it, touches base on a lot without even any words in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of cool character introductions. We already talked about Palpatine. We talked about Yoda, of course. You know who else it introduces? Boba Fett.
You're right. They go to what is it, like Cloud Kingdom or something? Sky Kingdom. And
That's something out of Mario right there.
yeah, you're right. It's something like that. And Han meets his old friend Lando, and
Mhm.
Lando immediately tries to put smooth moves on Leia.
He's such a scumbag.
Such a scumbag.
Tries
Right in
stealing his
front of
girl
Han,
and sells him to the Empire in fucking 15
5
minutes.
minutes. And then when it's discovered that he was working with Vader all along, that he escorts them to the dinner room,
Mhm.
and Vader's sitting in there waiting with a cup of tea. Pretty much. Maybe not literally, but like he's like, "We've been waiting for you, Leia." And they just look at Lando and he's like, "Sorry." I had to. And
Dude,
then-
cutting over to Vader with some tea fucking reminds me of, can I get some mustard on that? Oh, we are
oh, we're back.
Could I get some mustard on that? Oh,
So they look at
Oh,
Lando
man.
and he's like, sorry guys, I had to. Like, if I didn't do this, he threatened my people, which
Yeah.
I get and I totally understand. But then they're like escorting Han Solo away to be frozen. He's instantly betrayed by Vader for making a deal with Vader to hand over Solo and Leia and Chewie. And he was just such a creep. Lando goes to take Leia by the arm after
Mhm.
Solo is frozen. And Vader interrupts him and says, "Take Leia and the Wookiee to my ship." And Lando looks at him. He's like, "What the fuck? You said you could." He's like, "You said you were gonna leave her under my control." He literally says that. He's like, "You said that you were gonna leave them under my supervision." Like, so you sold out
So
your
he literally
friend
sells them out. He literally sells them out with the intent to
of having
keep Leia.
Leia. Yeah.
Wow.
He's such a
Wow.
dirtbag, and like that's all it takes is for him to like turn back, turn against Vader. 5 minutes later he's helping Leia and the Leia
Yeah.
and Chewie escape, and it's like, dude, they're right for questioning how much they can trust you because you're just the ultimate skis bag. Han is barely fucking frozen. Not only is he barely frozen, when they do freeze Han, his sculpture comes out and his lips are like 5 times bigger than they were before he got frozen. I'm like, that's not Han Solo.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, man, Lando, dude, from the cape to the fucking mustache. I mean, he just looks like a skis ball
He looks
right
like a
off the bat.
villain. Totally.
He does. But
So-
yeah, while we're on, as you say, the Cloud City, I don't know what it's called, but I like that name. We are introduced to Boba Fett, and not to jump into Return of the Jedi, I can't even enjoy the screen time this guy has
Totally
in
agree.
anything prior to Return of the Jedi because of how insignificant and stupid and whack his
One of the
death is.
best costume designs of the
Yes.
entire franchise.
Yes.
You immediately want to know more about this bounty hunter,
Yeah, man.
and it's such a wasted opportunity, in my opinion.
Right?
We have
Isn't it?
we have to wait, what, 30 years before they just realize they need to do something with his character.
Yeah.
And even when they do, no offense, Attack of the Clones is probably
Yeah.
one of the worst entries in the franchise, in my opinion.
Terrible. Awful.
And again, wasted as fuck in
Mhm.
Attack of the Clones. But yeah, in this one, they sell Han over to Boba Fett. So Luke arrives on this ship after Han is frozen, and Vader has his stormtroopers and admirals escort Lando, Leia, and Chewie, I guess, to a different ship or something along those lines. They're just walking down the hall, okay, surrounded by stormtroopers, pretty much in handcuffs. Luke arrives, and Leia is pretty much clear as fuck. She's screaming at him multiple times, "Luke, it's a trap. Get out of here." And he's like, "What? What did she say?" He falls for it anyway. Like, I don't know how much more. She's like hanging on the corner of a wall, like, "It's a trap. It's
Yeah.
a trap." And he's like, "I couldn't make that out." He falls for the trap anyway.
Yeah.
2 minutes later, the three of them are still being escorted by all the stormtroopers down the hall. It's the most awkward scene, I think, in the entire original trilogy. Lando's men just come out of nowhere. They just walk up to the stormtroopers and put guns on all of them. And they're like, "We got you. You got to free them." No one talks. The stormtroopers are just like, "Ah, man, they got us." Like, there's no pushback or anything. They're just like, "Ah, shucks. We got busted by Lando's men." And Lando turns around and he's like, "We got you."
And as you're talking, the name came to me, and it's Bespin. The name of the
Bespin?
planet is Bespin, and
Okay.
that makes me think of talking about a little place called Aspen.
Aspen.
Yeah, so, Luke falls for the trap. As you said, I don't know what else Leia could do to help him not fall for the trap. Almost reminds me of that Scary Movie 2 clip, like, check the music room, check the music room.
Yeah.
Who's in danger? Check the fucking music room. It's like, kind of reminds me of that.
Totally.
But he takes the bait, he falls for the trap, and, that's really the main climax of Empire Strikes Back is his,
Timeout.
yeah, yeah,
So they start fighting in the climax, right?
yes.
Luke and Vader. Like they exchange a couple duels. Okay. Not much going on at all. Vader uses his force to like push Luke and he just like flies back and he falls like a little kid. He like sits down on his legs. It made me bust out laughing so hard. I was like, why did he fall like that? That was
Yeah.
so random. The camera shoots over to Chewie and Leia and Lando trying to escape, right? On the Millennium Falcon. There's stormtroopers hot on their tail. Chewie is just sniping motherfuckers, just taking out people
He
left
is.
and right. He's the only one doing anything while carrying C-3PO, who's in 50 fucking parts on his back in a backpack at this point. He's the only one doing anything, okay? We get like 30 seconds of them having a gunfight on the ship. Camera cuts back to Luke and Vader. In that 10 seconds that we're watching Chewie in his fight with the stormtroopers, Skywalker is sweating so hard in his fight against Vader. He's drenched in sweat, dripping wet in this fucking lightsaber duel with Vader. I thought that was hilarious. On a more serious note, I thought it was interesting. Luke's exerting all this energy fighting Vader. Vader is like standing still. He knows he's fighting his son at this point and is
Mm.
probably not trying to kill him because we come to
Yeah.
find out a few minutes later what his ultimate plan is. He wants
Sure.
Luke to join forces with him and rule the galaxy together and take down the Emperor Palpatine themselves,
Yeah.
which I never picked up on as a kid. I thought he was just trying to convert him to the dark side in general. But no, he wants Luke to rule the galaxy with him. I love that ending fight, to end
I do
Empire
too.
Strikes Back. I think it's really well done. A little cheesy, but the big reveal that Vader is actually Anakin and Luke's
Mhm.
father and Luke's reaction to it and ultimately everything he's saying to Luke and the way he's fighting Luke is to get Luke to join and turn to the dark side. And really the message of the movie, isn't that the truth about life, is when you let your anger or your hatred consume us, it wrecks us, which is what Vader wants to happen to Luke. He wants his anger and hatred towards Vader to consume him enough to convert to the dark side, which I think is great, because Luke doesn't let that happen up to this point. A
Yep.
great ending. I thought it was a lot better than A New Hope, in my opinion.
I agree. And that's part of the reason why I love Yoda's character so much, because what you just spoke about, kind of, patience and anger and, allowing those types of emotions, to lead to X, Y, and Z, it's exactly what Yoda sees in Luke and is doing everything in his power to prevent from happening, because obviously, as we know, that's what happened to Anakin Skywalker, struggling with the exact same thing, but ultimately allowing those things to, consume him, control him, and lead to,
For sure.
X, Y, and Z, So, yeah, I agree. Really, really love the tone of this movie compared to A New Hope. If you gave me a choice between A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back, I'm going Empire Strikes Back all day. Very
Totally.
entertaining. And just even though Luke Skywalker, the main theme of last week was, being the whiny bee, starting to tone down a little bit. Not much, but a little bit. And I think we can thank Yoda for that. But yeah, like you said, the big reveal is Darth Vader revealing he's his father, and Luke lost a hand, and rather than, joining him, he decides to. I love that shot. He just jumps off the balcony and just falls. Vader's hand is out, like trying to, like, hey, grab my hand, and Luke just jumps off and just disappears. That's how high they are. And Vader's like, "The fuck are you
Right?
doing?"
It's like, well, I tried.
I know.
And then he walks
So-
back into his own ship and he's like, where's Leia and Lando and Chewie? And they're like, sir, they got away. And he's like, what the fuck? He's like, how the fuck did they get away?
Yeah, man. Well, we spent a little bit of time talking about foreshadowing in this movie. Definitely some more foreshadowing the final scene of the movie, which is Luke using the Force to connect with Leia, who, as we, come to find out, his sister, and it really shows that, she also has those ties to the Force. So
Yeah.
they don't get to that until episode 6, but I like how the final scene they kind of start to lay those breadcrumbs for that reveal.
Totally, totally. Overall, I liked it a lot more than A New Hope. It was a good rewatch. It balanced out the kind of kiddie cheesiness of it with more of the I don't know, the story was just better, the action was better, the effects were better, as
Yeah.
you would expect. I would give it a B over A New Hope, which I gave a C.
Yeah, I would give Empire Strikes Back a B minus, which is higher than A New Hope as well. It's not my favorite. Actually, we'll get to that next week. My favorite actually is Jedi, the Return of the Jedi, but it's definitely better in my opinion than A New Hope without a doubt. For pretty much every reason you just said. So it was a lot of fun revisiting it.
For
it was
sure.
fun, picking up on some things that, even though we've seen this maybe so many times, we haven't really picked up on. So it was a lot of
Absolutely.
fun, and I look forward to continuing this conversation next week.
With Return of the Jedi, for sure.
Absolutely. Comment below any thoughts or opinions you guys have, and we appreciate it. Thank you.